An angry and sadistic fraudster has been sentenced to prison after a plot to kill a federal judge, prosecutors, and FBI agents with a wood chipper. May have some anger issues, possibly. Seems like he might have some problems, so yeah. A con man already imprisoned for a fake gold mine scheme is to spend an additional 20 years in prison for soliciting murder of the trial judge, the prosecutors, and the FBI agents in a plot that involved a wood chipper. Joshua Arthur Walhall, who is 67, has serious and severe personality disorder, you don't say, marked by obsessiveness, compulsiveness, narcissism, paranoia, and delusions. But that didn't inhibit the ability to concoct a diabolical murder scheme that he knew was terribly wrong. The district judge saying, "I believe Mr. Walhall is a manipulative, dangerous, angry, and sadistic man. I know of nothing in his life or what he did here that would warrant a sentence less than 20 years. Indeed, justice and respect for rule of law demand the longest printed sentence authorized by law." So the judge gave him the max, perhaps unsurprisingly. The prosecutor emphasized that Walhall had told his would-be hitman if I couldn't get it done, he'd just do it himself when he got out. Again, he has anger issues. "He wants those people dead," Shepard said, the prosecutor, referring to the now retired U.S. District Judge who presided over Walhall's fraud trial, as well as investigating FBI agents and the prosecutors, assistant U.S. attorneys who are now in private practice. He wanted them dead several years ago. He wants them dead now, and he's going to want them dead in 20 years. The only thing this court can do at this point is put that harm off as long as possible. Well, I mean, he's 67, so he'll be quite old if he ever gets out of jail, so that will be harmful, I suppose. Shepard, the prosecutor, said the victims were watching from the gallery will have to look over their shoulders for as long as this defendant walks the earth. He also emphasized that Walhall spoke of harming the family members, unspeakable acts motivated solely by federal agents performing their duties. "It's almost unforgivable at every level," Shepard said. 20 years isn't even close to what's appropriate for what he tried to do. Well, apparently that was the limitation imposed by the statute because the federal judge gave him the max. The 8-year prosecution of Walhall, holy shit, 8 years that they've been prosecuting this guy. It includes 3 trials and 1 trip to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit and follows a jury convicting him of wire fraud in 2012 for an investment scheme that duped a couple in their 80s out of their life savings based on purported ability to extract gold from abandoned mines. He was arrested in Nevada as a fugitive in 2011 with a gun and a book entitled How to Be Invisible. I guess the book didn't work. Carney on Monday noted Walhall's ability to obtain firearms, with Shepard saying Walhall obtained 3 in total, as well as multiple different barrels. Okay, there you go. "He is a con man that plays to the audience," Shepard said, adding that if Walhall had the proper audience for his plans, the case could instead be about multiple dead bodies. Exciting and fun. Guilford presided over the fraud trial and sentenced Walhall to 14 years in prison and $2.5 million in restitution. That would be for the gold mine thing. Walhall was scheduled to be released in 2026, but in 2014, prosecutors secured a new indictment against him for soliciting the murders that we just talked about. A jury convicted him in 2016, but after a mistrial because a previous jury couldn't read a verdict. But the Ninth Circuit reversed his conviction in 2019, saying Carney violated Walhall's Sixth Amendment rights by not making further inquiry before declining his request to represent himself. He wanted to represent himself, which of course he has a right to do, but the judge is supposed to go through a colloquy to make sure that you understand what you're doing. And apparently this judge just said, okay, without any further discussion. So therefore, the Ninth Circuit ruled that his decision to waive counsel was not knowing. I mean, I know what the decision is without reading it. Because the judge didn't go through the factors, he couldn't be known what he was doing. So that's why it was reversed. Brown's sentencing memo asked Carney to impose tenure in prison, given the fanciful, speculative, and attenuated nature of the purported solicitation. The lawyer said on Monday that Walhall's words were reprehensible, but his plan was essentially a thought crime because it was a dark, twisted revenge fantasy that had no likelihood of success. I'm not sure the judge was buying any of that at all. Mr. Walt Hall is not an evil mastermind, Brown said. Mr. Walt Hall is a damaged individual who escaped through fantasy, and as awful as those fantasies were, they have no chance of succeeding. Yeah, you got 20 years. Trial testimony established that Walt Hall spoke in detail to 2 inmates about hiring a hit squad to use a wood chipper for the torture and murders. The inmates turned out to be informants who would unsuccessfully try to talk to other inmates into murder plots in hopes of reducing their own prison sentences. Hilarious. So they were trying to solicit people in the hopes of then turning those people in order to reduce their own sentence. It's a bold scheme, Cotton. Okay, jurors in Walt Hall's most recent trial didn't hear from one witness because his 30-year prison sentence for drug trafficking was reduced after earlier testimony, and he was deported to Mexico. Brown said Monday the informants took advantage of the fact that his client can't stop talking. That is a continuing problem. He doesn't know when to stop talking, Your Honor, to the aggravation of many and the aggravation of all. Yeah. But that doesn't make my client out to be some sort of undercover serial killer. The man won't shut up, and the man has, with his own words, condemned himself to another 20 years. Walt Hall testified in his own defense at trial, repeatedly accusing Brown of conspiring against him before Carney cut him off. His combative behavior continued Monday as he demanded more time and insisted Brown wasn't truly representing him. I'm not sure how you truly represent this guy. He also told Carney he wasn't legally authorized to oversee the case because he had overseen a mistrial. John, you're not helping yourself. I'm advising you to stop talking, his lawyer said. You know it's going great. Shepard called the continual nonsense the defendant has engaged in for years, time and time again, over and over again. Anything to delay or obstruct these proceedings, that's all he's done, Shepard told Carney. Monday's sentencing ended with Walt Hall telling Carney he had no plans under such rigged circumstances. Carney's clerk instructed the courtroom all rise as the judge left the bench. Marshals then led Walt Hall away without incident as he told Brown, "Do not file any fake appeals for me. You do not represent me." Thus, that brings us to the end of consideration of the case about the fraudster who had been convicted for trying to sell people some false gold in those mines. He's a prospector who has the secret to the gold. He does not. And he was going to get 12 years, but then how about an additional 20 for threatening to kill the prosecutor, the judge, and everyone else in sight. Also, he has trouble keeping his mouth shut and threatened his own attorney, so it's going well. So this guy gets the 20 years for the plot to kill everyone, and that brings us to the end of discussion of this case.